Hello all you source wielding lovers, as always I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be previewing something that I have waited almost 2 years for. It is time to preview Divinity Original Sin 2, developed and published by Larian Studios. For those unfamiliar with the Divinity Original Sin series, it is a top-down RPG with turn-based tactical combat. The first game came out in 2014 and was critically acclaimed. It was a massive hit and arguably, especially in my opinion, was one of the best games of that year. Divinity Original Sin 2 is of course a direct sequel to Divinity Original Sin, and it is finally come to early access and is going to be in early access for a little while before full launch. So the early access version of the game contains essentially the first act, which essentially lasts around 8 to 12 hours depending on what you do, and if you go through and you're a bit of a completionist like me and go through all the quests and everything there is to see. And there also is a PvP arena mode, and if you buy into the early access version you will of course receive the full game upon release. Now, while there are certainly some features missing and there are going to be some bugs in there, for the most part I actually had a really smooth ride through the entire thing. I didn't encounter one single issue apart from one or two minor graphical issues where I would leave an area and not all of my party members would spawn, so I would have to go back and then back in and then back out again, and then it would be fine. But ultimately, even at this point, even at this early stage, it is ridiculously polished. It looks fantastic, and that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start talking about graphics. So let's talk about graphics. Graphically, the game is a massive, massive improvement to that of Divinity Original Sin, the original one. Now, I have to say that not only does the world look lush and vibrant and the colour scheme looks amazing, but they've clearly really enhanced the Divinity engine to be able to push it more. Characters look so much better than they do. One of my biggest bugbears about the first game was that the world looked great, but the actual character models were really, really behind the times, and they looked so undetailed and so problematic. This has been completely rectified in the sequel. All the character models look great, even when you go into your character creation and you can select, details like scars. Like one of the character faces has a scar that is clearly visible, and the level of detail on those character models has just been upped completely, which is nice to see. Which brings me nicely on to character creation. Now, the character creation this time round is a little bit different than the original. I have to say that I do love the changes. So let's start. Of course, you have the cosmetic customization, which is a lot of fun. There's a good amount of different faces, different hairstyles, different colors for hair, and of course facial hair for the males. For the most part though, I would like to see a little bit more, and no doubt they'll probably add more when the full launch releases. However, what's most interesting about the character creation isn't the cosmetic customization, but it is of course the fact that you can create your own character, but also now we have origin characters. Now, essentially origin characters are predetermined characters. They have their own backstory, and choosing an origin character essentially affects how the game plays in terms of how characters will react to you. You will have specific dialogue choices for that character. You will have specific new quests for that origin character that you won't get via a created character, and the same works both ways. Created characters will also have their own unique things and different quests and essentially different experiences than that of origin characters. Now, the origin characters are a lot of fun. There's a good variety in there at the moment. No doubt more will be added as time goes by, but I think it's really interesting that we have a nice choice between pre-made characters and the option to build your character from the ground up. Now, regardless of whether you choose an origin character or create your own character, you are always able to change their class and customize their abilities and talents, etc., etc. And this is very, 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 very similar to the original. There's very little changes in terms of classes and abilities, and it's still the same point system, strength, dexterity, etc., etc. One thing that is massively different is the tag system. Now, the tag system essentially denotes what your character wants to be. So, for example, if I created a human male, then I'm going to get human as a tag automatically, but then I can put in scholar and mystic. Now, these essentially affect the game in several different ways. The majority of the game being that it's going to give you new dialogue choices and new ways to respond to other people depending on that tag system. At this early point, character creation has two big thumbs up from me. I have to say that I'm very satisfied with the character creation. I think it offers a lot of customization, it offers a lot of choices, and I like that in an RPG. That is my bread and butter when it comes to RPG. Can I affect the game world? Can I create a character that is going to have his own unique experience? And if both of those answers are yes, then it's good for me, and I'm very happy with that. Now let's get on to the actual main game itself. So now we've only been able to see Act 1 in the early access version so far. Act 1 essentially is a lot of fun. The story of the game itself takes place where your character is essentially put on a prison ship because you are a magic source wielder, and the reason for this is because Source is now outlawed. Essentially, the divine is now dead, so the world is godless, and the Void Walken have started appearing, which are creatures from the void, and they essentially believe that source wielders are attracting these creatures to the world and causing mass devastation. So you've been fitted with a source muting collar, and you are put on a prison ship, and you're sent to Fort Joy, which is essentially a prison island controlled by the Divine Order. Now, your ship gets attacked by Voidwalken on the way there, and you are one of the only survivors to hit the shore of Fort Joy, and from there you have to figure out what the hell is going on in the world, and of course help your characters to survive. Now, the story is really compelling thus far. Most of the side quests and the main story itself still contains that Larian charm, that certain, it's serious but not so serious. It's, you know, got serious moments in there. It's got really funny humor moments in there, and for the most part, it's a nice nostalgic trip back to the original. But I think it has certainly improved thus far. One thing I did notice in the early access version is there is no voice acting. Now, the developers have said that there is going to be voice acting come the full game. However, they're not sure how much, because Divinity Original Sin had 800,000 lines of dialogue, all of which were pretty much voiced in the original game. However, that has been doubled to nearly 2 million lines of, I think it's 2 million, around 2 million lines of voice, which is a crazy amount of text. And so they're basically saying there is going to be voice acting, but they're unsure at this point if the full game is going to be voice acted, like every line. It might just be a case of maybe the main game and certain characters are voiced and then side quests will not be voiced. I hope it is a case of the whole game will be voiced, because it's a lot of fun when an entire game is fully voiced. But either way, it doesn't really matter, because while voice acting in a game like this is a nice touch, it is ultimately a game that is very well written and a joy to read. Now, one thing that has been expanded on since the original is the fact that the idea of freedom in the game world, and Divinity Original Sin 2 has taken this to a whole new level. You literally can go anyone, you can kill anyone, you can interact with everything. It is just ridiculous. I mean, you can literally kill all your quest givers. You can do whatever you want to do within the confines of your character, and that is something that is a lot of fun. It is also something that can be a little bit of a pain in the ass when you accidentally shoot a friendly NPC with a fireball in a fight and then they die. That's quite annoying, but I like the sense of freedom. Anything can happen, and that is a lot of fun. There's a lot of hidden content in there, which is nice. There's a lot of hidden areas to find, lots of different loot items to find, and that's something that's always a big plus in a game like this. So the last thing I wanted to talk about in this preview is, of course, the combat. Now, the combat is something that Divinity Original Sin was critically acclaimed for. It was fantastic. You had the ability to change your environment around you. You could electrify water, and the tactical depth of the combat in Divinity Original Sin was just top notch. And in the sequel, in Divinity Original Sin 2, this has just been taken and amped up to 2.0, so to speak. And that is very reminiscent of the entire game. It is Divinity Original Sin 2.0. It's just ramped up that little bit further, and I have to say that I absolutely adore the combat. It is challenging. It is tough, it is deep, there's lots of tactical depth there, and all the elemental interactions that were in the first game have been taken into the second game and then added some more. And it's very difficult to kind of get to terms with the fact that the level design is now pretty much built into the combat as well, because in the original you had certain areas that were of course laid with water. And you had certain areas here and there that you could do, and there's a lot more things to affect in the environment in Divinity Original Sin 2. Like, for example, when you first start the game, you're essentially on a beach, which means that a lot of that area is going to be waterlogged, which means that you lay down one electricity spell, and there is going to be mass devastation there. And I think that it's not only those elemental interactions, but the fact that a lot of different spells this time around also change the environment around you. So, for example, curses in the original game didn't really do anything to the environment. In this game, they do. And there's little things like that that are minor to big changes that have really impacted combat, made it just feel a little bit bigger, a little bit more flashier, and ultimately it adds even more depth and tactical finesse to it. So how do I feel overall? Well, after finishing Act 1, I have to say that I cannot wait for this game to come out. I have waited 2 years to see what the sequel will be like, and I am not disappointed. I have a couple of minor gripes here and there. There obviously needs some bugs to be fixed. I would really like the game to be fully voiced, but if it's not, then it's not. It'll be interesting to see how everything develops with the cooperative play, and I think ultimately that's where the joy of the game lies, in the sense that you have cooperative play and the dialogue system is able to really, it's more competitive this time round. So for example, you saying something rather than your friend saying something in a dialogue system is going to get you an item rather than them, and I like that. That's a lot of fun. Ultimately, in my opinion, it's looking and shaping up to be a fantastic game like the original was. It is very much the original game taken up to 2.0. It's bigger, it's badder, it's more fun, it's more crazy, and it's just overall a more fleshed out experience overall from the base core mechanics. For me personally, it's definitely worth picking it up on early access if you want to do that. The first act alone, with the origin characters, with the character creator, there's a lot of replayability in there for the first act alone. However, if you're not into unfinished things, for me, I'm not into unfinished things for the most part, then it's a case of definitely wait till full launch. I, for one, cannot wait to review this when it comes out, and we'll see how things get added and things take shape in the coming months. So that is my preview of Divinity Original Sin 2. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Do like, subscribe, and as always, I will see you next time.